Good morning. So as you know, our theme for this year is called Igniting the Archetype. Archetype is a pattern or a model. The word in Greek means an original or first molded. An archetype carries an overpowering charge of energy, and when you connect to the different archetypes, you are carried forward by its power. So it behooves us to learn about the different aspects and the many myriad thousands of different archetypes that are there. And this month, we are exploring the altruists, the humanitarian, the practice or concern for the welfare of others, for doing good works, whether big or small. So last week I shared the story about the woman who decided to pay for the coffee of the guy behind her at a donut shop in the drive-thru, and what happened is the person behind her then paid for the person behind them, and it went on for 55 people. Went on for like 2.5 or 3 hours or something crazy. So an act of altruism could be as simple as buying someone a cup of coffee or paying for their meal, or it can be putting your life on the line for someone else, right? So there's many different levels. It is selfless service, and selfless service is an act of worship. Jesus said it this way when he said, when you give alms, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Just give in secret. So when we are truly serving, when we are truly in this selfless service mindset, we're doing it secretly. We're doing it not for the recognition of doing it, but rather for the act of worship that it is. So it's an idea of generosity, which we'll probably be exploring more next week, but generosity is actually the first step in Buddhist practice. So you would think that meditation is the first step in Buddhist practice, but the truth is, when in Buddhist teachings, you need to learn to be generous first. You need to learn to give first, and then sit in silence and commune with the divine and spirit. So my prayer for us this month is, may we awaken to the archetypal pattern of the altruist for the highest and good of all. So let's just hold that with me. May we awaken to the inner altruist so that it benefits all humankind. And it is so. So we recognize that there are different archetypal patterns that are stronger in different stages of our lives. So for instance, the altruist would probably come out for all of us, whether that comes up for you as an archetype or not, if you are a parent of small children, right? Particularly if you have a baby or a toddler, because what are you doing? You are giving over everything to especially babies. Your sleep, your time, all of your energy, everything goes into that. The same thing if you're in a situation where you're taking care of someone who is ill, or someone who is dying, or an elderly parent. You know, those take that takes that altruist energy. And according to Carol Pearson, who's wrote The Hero Within, and it's the book that we're going to be studying together in our home groups, she said there's different levels to each of the archetypal patterns. And level 1 of the altruist is a conflict between your own needs and those of others. There is a tendency to sacrifice your own needs to what others need or want from you, and rescuing behavior. Now, when is this appropriate? It's appropriate when we have babies, when we're taking care of someone who is ill, when we're taking care of someone who is dying, but it's not appropriate on a day-to-day level, nor is it sustainable, right? So have you ever been in the level 1 where you've had to just really surrender and give over everything? So again, then we move into level 2, and level 2 is learning to care for yourself, so that caring for others is enriching, not maiming, and learning tough love, empowering, and not doing for others. So that's level 2 of the altruist. And this would be when your child learns to tie his own shoes, and then you let him tie his own shoes, right? Even if it's been done wrong. Or letting your child go out and explore and make mistakes, even when they're 12 or 20 or 30 or whatever. And so the part of that then is like, okay, we're letting go of control, and there's an innate trust that you are going to do the best that you can do, and I don't have to make sure that everything is going to fall into place and that I have to take care of every tiny little thing. So that is level 2. It is releasing and letting go. I know when my children went off to college, I was shocked by how much time I had all of a sudden. You spend your whole life caring for these kids, and even when they're teenagers, you're hauling them around to their different activities, and you've got to support them in that, and it's like this whole consuming world, and then one day they leave. And they're just gone. And it's like, wait a minute, when are you coming back? I don't know. They're just gone. And a friend of mine said to me when I was going through this, she said, what you can do is all that nurturing energy that you put into your kids, you can put it into yourself now. You can take all that nurturing energy and you can use it for self-care, which was, quite an awakening. Because the truth is, without self-care, we become resentful, we become martyrs, and we become enablers. And sometimes it's the hardest thing to do when someone we love has destructive behavior to step back and then watch them fall, right? Called hitting bottom. I know that when my mother joined Al-Anon, it was then that she realized that she didn't have to, rescue my dad, who was an alcoholic. She learned that she could step back and she could let him figure out what he was going to do, even when things were at their darkest and they were at their worst. And what's interesting is we all thought, the whole family thought that if my mother was not with my dad, he would not be able to survive, that he would just not be able to live, that he'd just fall apart. And my mother died first, which none of us expected. But she died first, and you know what happened? My dad thrived. He was just fine. He's engaged in all kinds of activities. He found a new girlfriend, and he just had a great time. And we were all scratching our heads going, wait a minute, we thought that he would collapse if he didn't have her to support him and hold him up. And that's that enabler behavior, isn't it? Where you think, but if I'm not here, and if I'm not taking care of you and holding you up, the whole world is going to collapse. And you know what? Maybe it will, for that person's world, might a little bit for a while, but we have that spirit of the divine within us to strengthen us and carry us through. Sometimes we think that to be kind and compassionate means that we're supposed to be always available. But the truth is, the opposite is true. I just saw an interview recently with Brené Brown, who has been interviewing some of the most kind and compassionate people in the world. And she was, asking them about their lives and what they did. And she said, the most compassionate people I have interviewed over the past 13 years were also the most boundaried. Now there's a word for you, boundaried. Boundary, meaning what's okay and what's not okay. When we don't set boundaries and we let people do things that are not okay, then we become resentful. She said, compassion is a belief, and empathy is a skill set. Empathy is feeling with someone, but empathy minus boundaries is not empathy. Compassion minus boundaries is not genuine. Boundaries are not fake walls or division. It is respect. Here's what's okay, and here is what is not. So I think this is an interesting concept, an interesting idea. So empathy, she said, without boundaries is not empathy. So empathy means to feel with. So you're sad, I can feel with you, or I can witness your sadness, I can witness your suffering. And this is something that we practice in our chaplaincy program quite frequently, because that's our role, is to pray and to witness and to be with and to empathize with whatever is happening, whether it's celebrating or whether it's suffering. And it is being with, but it isn't climbing into a hole with somebody, right? Because what good do you do when somebody comes to you and says, oh, my whole world is falling apart and I don't know what to do, and then you go, I'm going to just get down in this hole with you, and then you got two people in a hole. What good is that? It doesn't work. So part of having boundaries is being able to step back so that we can be more fully present with empathy, with compassion, and with selfless service. So it's a fine line that we learn to walk. So Brene Brown said, these days I am less sweet, but I am more loving. So setting boundaries implies self-care. So the whole premise of the altruist is based on the idea of loving your neighbor as yourself. And in Unity, we call that beholding the Christ. It is serving as an extension of love. Now, Jesus, the night before he was crucified, was a little bit concerned that the disciples weren't getting his message. It's like, really, at that point, they all thought that they were going to end up ruling Jerusalem, and they were going to have this great kingdom, and they were all vying for power. And it's like, hey, Jesus, don't forget me. I'm your right-hand man. And he's like, they're not getting it at all. And so at the Last Supper, he washed the feet of the disciples. He washed all of their feet, which was considered, he was the teacher, he was the rabbi, he was the big guy, and here he is on his knees, he's washing their feet, which is a very lowly thing to do, left for servants. And he said to them, after he had washed their feet, in the book of John, when he had washed their feet and resumed his place, he said, do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, I am. But if then your Lord and your teacher has washed your feet, then you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you should do as I have done to you. Because truly I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master. So Jesus is demonstrating how we are to behold the Christ in one another, how we're supposed to honor that divinity within one another, and that one isn't greater than the other, that we're all one. Jonathan Sacks said that religion creates community. Community creates altruism, and altruism turns us away from self and towards the common good. And there is something about the tenor of relationships within a religious community that makes it the best tutorial in citizenship and good neighborliness. So, we are in a spiritual community here, are we not? And we worship, we pray, we create an environment of calling out the divine in one another. So we're in this sanctuary, and the sanctuary is a safe place. It is a sacred place. It is holy ground. So we come together in this place on a Sunday, sometimes other days, but usually Sunday's the day, and we immerse ourselves in this collective energy that we create when we come together through music, through the lesson, through prayer and meditation. We also have codes of behavior that exist within a spiritual community. So we don't triangulate. What is triangulate? Triangulation is, I don't like something Gail has done, so I'm going to go tell Dirk all about it. And we're going to just talk about that, Gail. No, the idea is that in a clear energy field community, if I have an issue with Gail, it's to Gail that I speak. If I need help, I can have somebody to go with. So part of our code of behavior is not to triangulate. We come together and we pray, we meditate, we practice kindness and compassion, we practice service. We also celebrate our achievements, right? And see the good and see the ultimate good in one another and call that out and celebrate with one another when we are achieving something wonderful in our lives. We also hold sacred space when we're suffering. And we do it while maintaining our boundaries, right? So a spiritual community is a laboratory to practice spiritual principles. So again, I've already said we're in this sanctuary, we're in this sacred place. It benefits all of us to come together. But spiritual community gives us that opportunity for spiritual practice. So guess what? We're going to do a little spiritual practice. And I know the ushers are getting ready. We're almost done, but. So the name of this talk is Namaste, right? And Wikipedia says that Namaste is usually spoken with a slight bow, hands pressed together, palms touching and fingers pointing upwards, thumbs close to the chest. And in Hinduism, it means, I bow to the divine in you. So I invite you to take your hands, palms together, fingers facing up, and touch your heart. It actually has an experience of opening the heart. And then I bow to the divine in you. So we're in this spiritual laboratory. We're in this place of practicing spiritual principle. So David's going to play the Namaste song. And I would like you, if you are able, to get up and to make contact with at least 5 people silently. So it's, Jennifer, would you come up? And you can say, I behold the Christ in you, but to make the eye contact, to really look beyond the outer appearance into the eyes and into the divine presence within. And once you have done that, you can either say, I bow to the divine in you, or just bow. So if you are able, please stand and begin by placing your hands in the Namaste position and just walk around consciously, mindfully, 5 people. So this is a heart-opening exercise that puts into practice the teachings of Jesus. And in this sanctuary, in this safe and sacred place, it's an opportunity to do that. Because when we go out in the world, we put up our barriers, we put up our walls, and just for a moment, we can take them down and we could look at the God, at the goddess in one another. So level 3 of the altruist is generativity, a willingness to care and be responsible for animals, the earth, beyond your own immediate family and friends. It is community building. So generativity means a concern for guiding the next generation. So when we move through the stages of altruism, from parenting, taking care of elderly parents or the sick, the dying, when we move through that and also learn within this process to take care of ourselves and to set boundaries, then we can move to the place of generativity. And again, it's a concern for guiding the next generation. It means caring for the planet, for animals, and for the community beyond our own. So it's stretching out. This can only happen when you have learned to set boundaries and care for yourself. Remember, Brené Brown said, "I am less sweet, but I'm more loving." A Greek proverb says this: "Society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they will never sit in." Society grows great when old women plant trees whose shade they will never sit in. May this be so. May we awaken the altruist in ourselves and in all humanity. Thank you.